The world was swallowed by black. The last thing Adam remembered was the blinding flare of sparks ripping through the wires above, the thunder of metal as the ceiling gave way, and Elena's scream lost in the roar. Then silence. When his eyes snapped open, he was coughing dust, choking on the thick stench of burnt plastic and smoke. Emergency lights flickered weakly in the corners of the tunnel, washing everything in blood-red pulses. For a moment he didn't know if he was alive or trapped in the seconds before death. Elena, he rasped, pushing himself up through the debris. His hands shook as he brushed away broken glass from his jacket. Michael. A faint groan answered him from somewhere in the haze. He staggered toward it, his boots crunching over shattered tiles. Elena lay half buried under a twisted beam, her face streaked with dirt, but her eyes open and burning with defiance. "I'm fine," she whispered, though the tremor in her voice betrayed the pain. Adam heaved the beam off her and dragged her to her feet. Michael appeared a few seconds later, limping heavily, blood trailing down his temple. His eyes flicked around like a cornered animal, ready for the next strike. The blackout wasn't an accident. It was too precise, too perfectly timed. Victor's hand was all over it. Sirens wailed faintly in the distance, muffled by the layers of concrete, but closer than they should have been. Adam's chest tightened. The city above was gone, plunged into darkness. And now chaos would swallow everything. "We can't stay here," Michael growled, checking the knife strapped to his boot. "This place will fill with his men in minutes." Elena pressed her palm to the wall, steadying herself, her laptop bag still slung across her shoulder. Even in this hell, she had refused to let it go. "I intercepted fragments before the system fried. There was a name." A file Victor was trying to erase. Atlas. The word sank into Adam's mind like a knife. It wasn't random. He knew it. His father's voice echoed in the back of his skull, words he hadn't heard in years but could never forget. Atlas is the key. Find it and you'll know why the world bends. Adam froze, the sound of boots clanging on steel cutting through his memory. Shadows moved at the far end of the tunnel, flashlights slicing through the smoke. They were out of time. "This way," he hissed, grabbing Elena's hand. Together with Michael, they bolted down the tunnel, lungs burning, hearts hammering. The ground trembled beneath them as another explosion shook the facility, dust raining down like ash. They burst through a rusted service door into an old utility corridor. Pipes hissed overhead, leaking steam, the air humid and suffocating. Adam shoved the door shut behind them, the shouts of soldiers growing louder on the other side. For a moment, there was silence except for the thrum of their breathing. Adam leaned against the wall, closing his eyes. His father's shadow stretched longer than he ever imagined. If Atlas was real, if it was connected to everything, then Victor wasn't the only enemy hunting them. "Elena," he said, his voice low, steady despite the storm raging in him. "Pull up everything you can on that word, every trace, every mention. I don't care if it's buried in encrypted logs or forgotten archives. Find it," she nodded, wiping blood from her cheek. "I'll find it." Michael's eyes narrowed. "You're both chasing ghosts. Atlas doesn't matter if we don't survive the next hour." Adam opened his eyes, the red glow from the emergency lights painting his face in fire. "Then we survive because Atlas isn't a ghost. It's the reason all of this is happening, and I swear I won't stop until I know why." The sound of boots slammed against the corridor door, rattling it on its hinges. Soldiers were seconds away. Elena's fingers flew across her keyboard, searching, digging, pulling scraps of data from the dying system. The door cracked under the first blow, and then her eyes widened as words appeared on the broken screen. Not code. Not coordinates, words. "Welcome back, Adam." The screen flickered, the message burning into their eyes before vanishing into static. Adam's stomach dropped. His father was alive, watching, waiting, and pulling every string. The door blew open behind them, flashlights blinding, rifles raised. Adam drew his weapon, every nerve on fire. There was no turning back. The first shot cracked the concrete beside Adam's head, spraying dust into his eyes. He fired back without hesitation, dragging Elena behind the nearest pipe as bullets ricocheted off the steel walls. Michael lunged forward, his knife flashing in the strobe of muzzle fire. One soldier dropped with a scream, then another, but more were flooding through the door. "Elena, move," Adam shouted. She clutched her laptop to her chest and slid along the wall, her face pale but determined. Sparks rained as bullets struck the pipes above, releasing scalding steam into the corridor. The soldiers hesitated, blinded by the sudden fog, and Adam seized the moment. Now he barked. Michael hurled a smoke grenade, filling the tunnel with choking clouds. In the chaos, Adam pulled Elena through a side passage he had barely noticed before, a narrow shaft lined with rusted ladders disappearing upward into darkness. They climbed, lungs burning, hands slick with sweat and blood. The shouts below faded, but Adam knew it was only a matter of time before the soldiers regrouped. At the top, the hatch groaned open to reveal a maintenance level, empty except for rows of humming generators. The room pulsed with electric blue light, casting long shadows across the floor. Elena collapsed against the wall, gasping for breath, her hands trembling as she opened her laptop again. The cracked screen flickered back to life, still carrying traces of the message they had seen. "Welcome back, Adam." She turned the screen toward him, her voice barely audible. That wasn't Victor, that was something else. Someone else. Adam's jaw tightened. It was him. Michael paced the room, restless. "You're saying your father staged all this? That he's alive and pulling strings through encrypted systems no one should be able to touch?" "That's insane." Adam stared at the words, each letter carved into his mind like a brand. "It's not insane. It's exactly what he would do." Elena's fingers flew across the keys, tracing the origin of the signal. Layers of encryption, hidden pathways, burned identities. Finally, a set of coordinates flickered on screen. A warehouse by the docks. Michael leaned in. "That's a trap if I've ever seen one." Adam stood, sliding the pistol back into his holster. "Then we walk into it." The city above them was a nightmare. The blackout had crippled everything. Streetlights were dead, traffic signals gone, whole districts drowned in shadows. Fires burned in the distance where riots had already begun. Sirens wailed but never came close. The world had been tipped off balance, and Adam could feel the hand that pushed it. They moved through the ruins like ghosts, every step quick and silent. Elena stayed close, her laptop pressed tight to her chest. Michael trailed slightly behind, his eyes scanning every rooftop, every alley, every glint of movement. The wound on his leg was slowing him, but he refused to complain. At the docks, the air stank of oil and salt. Waves slapped against rusted steel hulls, the sound carrying eerily in the blackout silence. The warehouse loomed ahead, its windows dark, its gates half open like the mouth of a waiting beast. Adam drew his weapon again. "Stay sharp." Inside, the vast space was empty except for a single desk at the center, illuminated by one swaying bulb. On the desk sat an old reel-to-reel recorder, its spools turning slowly, whispering with static. Adam stepped closer, every muscle tensed. The tape crackled, then a voice filled the silence. Adam, he froze. It was a voice he hadn't heard in 15 years. Cold, commanding, and unforgettable. "I knew you'd come here. I knew the blackout would drive you into the dark where you belong. Atlas is not just a file, it is the spine of a world that must be broken before it breaks us. And you, my son, will either be the one to finish my work or the first to be buried by it." The tape stopped, the spools kept spinning, empty. Elena's eyes darted across the room. He recorded this. "He's not here." But before Adam could respond, a spotlight snapped on above them. Red lasers painted their chests. The sound of safeties clicking off filled the air. Soldiers were hidden in the rafters, in the shadows, all around them. Michael's knife flashed in his hand, his teeth bared. Adam tightened his grip on his pistol. And then another voice echoed from the shadows, not his father's this time. "Victor's, you just keep making it easy for me." The trap had been sprung. The warehouse became a cage of red light and gunmetal shadows. Dozens of rifles leveled down from the catwalks above, their sights glowing like angry eyes in the dark. Adam froze, his finger tightening on the trigger, but not pulling. One shot here meant death for all of them. Victor stepped forward from the far side of the room, his silhouette sharp against the hanging bulb. His suit was immaculate, untouched by the chaos of the blackout. In his hand, he twirled a small silver coin, flipping it over his knuckles like a magician. His smile was calm, cruel. "I told you, Adam," he said, his voice cutting through the silence. "Every path you take leads back to me. You were never running from me. You were running toward me." Elena's grip on her laptop tightened, her eyes darting from the soldiers to Victor. Michael's blade gleamed at his side, his whole body coiled like a spring. Adam's voice came low, steady, even as his pulse hammered in his throat. "Where is he?" Victor arched a brow. "Who? You know who?" "My father." A smirk tugged at Victor's lips. He flicked the coin high into the air, catching it without looking. "Your father is a ghost, a myth. A shadow men whisper about when they want to believe there's meaning in their suffering. But you're flesh and blood. You're here. And I'm the one who holds your leash." Adam's jaw clenched. He could feel Elena's eyes on him, feel Michael's tension vibrating in the air. He couldn't give Victor what he wanted. "Atlas," Adam said instead, the word cut like a blade. For the first time, Victor's smile faltered, just a flicker, but Adam saw it. "You don't know what you're saying," Victor said, his tone sharp now, defensive. "Atlas is above you, above all of us." Adam stepped forward, ignoring the rifles that instantly tracked his chest. "Then why did my father leave me a message? Why does he want me to finish what he started?" The silence that followed was heavier than the threat of bullets. Victor's coin stilled in his hand. His eyes, usually cold and empty, flashed with something Adam hadn't seen before. Fear. Then the sound came, a faint click. The bulb above them exploded, plunging the warehouse into darkness. Soldiers cursed, beams of flashlights swinging wildly. "Move," Adam barked. Michael struck first, his knife slashing a throat in the chaos. Elena dropped low, clutching her laptop as Adam fired into the rafters, each shot lighting the dark in violent bursts. Screams echoed, metal groaned, the air filled with the sharp stench of gunpowder. But in the confusion, Victor's voice still cut through, calm as ever. "Run, Adam, run while you still can, but you cannot run from blood. You cannot run from him." Then the explosions came. Charges planted somewhere deep in the building went off in a chain of fire. Walls cracked, steel supports shrieked, and the whole warehouse began to collapse. Adam grabbed Elena, hauling her toward the side exit as Michael carved a path with savage precision. They burst into the night just as the building behind them folded in on itself, fire tearing through the docklands, flames reflecting across the black water. They didn't stop running until the screams of metal were swallowed by the storm. Rain pelted down, turning the world into streaks of smoke and shadow. Finally, they collapsed under the skeletal remains of an old crane. Elena's hands shook as she opened her laptop again. Against all odds, the signal was still alive. Atlas wasn't gone. The coordinates had shifted, changing in real time. Michael spat blood onto the ground, his eyes blazing. "This ends tonight. We kill Victor, we end this." But Adam's gaze was fixed on the screen, his face pale, because the coordinates didn't point to a distant city, or a hidden bunker, or some offshore vault. They pointed home, the last place Adam wanted to go. The one place his father had once sworn would never be touched. And Adam realized with a chill that the game wasn't expanding outward. It was collapsing inward, dragging them to the very heart of the storm. The rain never stopped that night. It hammered the city like punishment, flooding the streets, turning alleys into rivers of filth. Adam pulled his hood low as they moved through the storm, but the word on Elena's screen wouldn't leave his mind. Home. The coordinates weren't random. They were personal, a direct message from his father. Elena's laptop glowed faintly under the shelter of her coat as she walked beside him, her face pale in the light. "I traced the signal 3 times. It all points back to the same place, an old estate outside the city. Abandoned years ago." Adam felt his stomach twist. "Not abandoned. That's where he raised me." Michael let out a bitter laugh, limping behind them. His leg still hadn't healed from the bullet he took weeks before, but he refused to slow down. Perfect, a childhood reunion in the middle of a blackout war zone. I'm sure it's not a trap at all. Adam ignored him, though the doubt gnawed at the edges of his mind. His father's voice still echoed in his head, cold and commanding. Atlas is the spine of a world that must be broken before it breaks us. By dawn, they reached the outskirts of the city. The estate rose out of the mist like a memory Adam had tried to bury. Tall iron gates, broken windows, vines crawling up the walls. It had once been a place of order and discipline, where his father drilled lessons into him with words sharp as blades. Now it looked like a mausoleum. Michael scanned the grounds with wary eyes. If Victor's already here, we'll know the second we step inside, then we make it fast, Adam said. They slipped through the broken gate, boots crunching on gravel. The silence was heavier than gunfire. Elena's laptop beeped softly, a pulse guiding them deeper into the estate. The signal was stronger here. Too strong. Inside, the air smelled of dust and mold. Furniture lay draped in white sheets like corpses, chandeliers hung with cobwebs. Adam moved slowly through the hall, every creak of the floorboards dragging him back to a childhood he hated and couldn't forget. They reached the study. Adam knew it before they opened the door. The place where his father had once sat for hours, poring over maps, papers, and charts no one else was allowed to see. The door creaked open, and there it was, the desk, untouched, a single lamp still standing on it as if waiting for him. On the desk sat a box, small, black, unmarked. Elena swallowed hard. That's it. The signal is coming from inside. Adam reached for it, but Michael grabbed his wrist. Don't, this is too easy. Everything's a trap, Adam shot back. But we don't get to walk away. He opened the box. Inside lay a stack of old photographs, each one carefully preserved. The first showed a group of men in military uniforms, faces blurred by time. His father stood among them, younger, his eyes already sharp with ambition. The second showed a map with red circles scrolled across cities around the globe. The third was worse. It was a photograph of their crew. Adam, Elena, Michael, taken during the heist. Elena's face went pale. How before she could finish, a click sounded in the corner of the room. A recorder roared to life. His father's voice filled the silence. Good, you've come back. I told you the world would collapse. Victor thinks he can control Atlas. He cannot. He's too small, but you, Adam, you are not. You will finish what I began, or you will die trying. The recorder stopped. And then the windows shattered. Flashbangs exploded in the room, white light tearing through their vision. Shouts followed, boots pounding the floors. Michael cursed, pulling his knife. Elena hit the ground, clutching her laptop. Adam's ears rang, his vision blurred, but one thing was clear. His father had brought him home not to give him answers, but to set the stage for war. The soldiers poured in, rifles raised. Their faces bore Victor's mark. Adam leveled his pistol. His father's house was about to become their battlefield. Gunfire shredded the walls, splintering wood and tearing through the old curtains. Adam ducked behind the desk, firing blindly through the smoke. The study that once held the sharpest memories of his childhood was now a killing ground, lit by muzzle flashes and screaming bullets. Michael moved like a shadow, knife in one hand, stolen rifle in the other, cutting down the soldiers as they stormed through the broken windows. His face was a mask of rage, his eyes wild. Elena stayed low, her laptop clutched to her chest, frantically trying to wipe traces of their location before more reinforcements closed in. This place is a beacon, she shouted over the gunfire. They'll keep coming until we're buried under them. Then we move, Adam barked, emptying the last of his magazine before shoving the desk aside, through the west hall. They sprinted down the corridor, bullets chasing them, glass exploding around their heads. The once proud estate groaned under the assault, chunks of ceiling collapsing, dust raining from the beams. Adam's heart pounded in his ears, but louder still was the voice of his father whispering from memory. You cannot run from blood, Adam, not forever. They burst into the dining hall, the long table overturned for cover. Soldiers followed, flooding in through every door. Adam fired until his pistol clicked empty, then seized a fallen weapon and kept shooting. Michael fought like a man possessed, blade flashing as he pulled enemies into the shadows and left them broken on the floor. But there were too many. A grenade clattered across the floor, rolling toward them. Adam shoved Elena down, covering her with his body as the blast ripped through the hall, shredding the air with fire and smoke. His ears rang, vision blurring. He pulled her up, dragging her to her feet even as his own legs trembled. Michael stumbled into view, blood running down his arm. His eyes burned into Adam's. You knew this would happen. You brought us here because of him. Adam's jaw tightened. I didn't know. Bullshit. Michael spat, slamming a soldier's head into the wall. Your father is alive, and you've been playing his game since the blackout. How long before you choose him over us? The words cut deeper than the gunfire. Adam wanted to deny it, to scream it wasn't true, but the doubt was already there. Elena's gaze flicked between them, fear not of the soldiers, but of what was breaking inside their circle. The soldiers regrouped outside, voices shouting orders, boots pounding closer. Adam forced his voice steady. We don't have time for this. If we fight each other, we're dead. We get out. We regroup. Then we decide who the enemy really is. Michael's grip tightened on his knife, his chest heaving. For a moment, Adam thought he would strike him right there. But then he turned away with a growl, slamming a fresh magazine into his stolen rifle. They blasted through a side door into the estate's courtyard. Rain hammered down, turning the ground to mud. Floodlights snapped on overhead, bathing them in harsh white. Dozens of soldiers waited, rifles raised. Elena froze. We're surrounded, a voice boomed through the storm. Victor, calm, patient, inevitable. Adam, lay down your weapon, walk away from them. You and I both know you were never meant to fight me. You were meant to surpass him. Your father is a relic. But you can still be useful. Adam raised his pistol, his chest rising and falling with ragged breaths. He could feel Michael's glare boring into him, Elena's hand clutching his sleeve like a lifeline. The rain soaked his face, but the heat burning inside him was colder than steel. He shouted back, his voice tearing through the storm. I'll never be your weapon. Gunfire erupted, drowning the night. The rain had stopped by the time Adam opened his eyes. His wrists were bound, the rope biting deep into his skin. The air was heavy with damp stone and the faint buzz of old generators. He was in a basement, dimly lit by a single hanging bulb that swayed gently, as if mocking his weakness. A figure stepped into the light, Victor, calm, composed, his clothes untouched by the storm outside. He studied Adam for a long moment, his smile measured. You survived the estate, impressive, but survival without purpose is nothing more than prolonging the inevitable. Adam said nothing, his chest still heaving from the fight, his muscles aching from the blast. He stared at Victor with quiet fury, the silence between them sharper than any curse. Victor dragged a chair across the floor, the scrape echoing like nails on glass, and sat across from him. He placed a small recorder on the table between them. With a press of a button, the room filled with a familiar voice. It was his father. The sound of it cut through Adam like a blade. The old man's voice, steady and commanding, filled the room. If you are hearing this, my son, then you've already crossed a line you cannot return from. Everything you've done, every bond stolen, every bullet fired, it was all written long before you chose. Blood is a chain. You cannot cut it. You can only decide which side of it you stand on. Adam's fists clenched until his nails dug into his palms. He wanted to scream, to shatter the recorder, but Victor leaned forward, watching every flicker of rage in his eyes. You see, Victor whispered, he planned this, not for me, for you. He raised you to fight his battles, and now you're left with the ruins of his empire. Adam spat blood onto the floor, his voice raw. You're lying. Victor smiled softly, almost pitying, am I? Or is the truth too heavy for you to carry? The recorder clicked off, silence crushed the room. Far above, Elena and Michael were on the run again, darting through the ruins of the city. Elena's laptop buzzed with a signal she couldn't explain, a ghost transmission on a frequency she had traced back to Adam. Her fingers trembled as she tapped the keys. "He's alive," she whispered. Michael stopped in the middle of the street, rain dripping from his hair, his expression unreadable. "If he's with Victor, then he's not the same man anymore." Elena's eyes hardened. "Then we get him back before Victor breaks him." Back in the basement, Victor leaned close to Adam, his voice low and deliberate. "You have a choice, Adam. You can cling to the lies your father fed you, or you can accept what you were meant to become. With me, you won't just survive, you'll rule." Adam stared at him, sweat dripping down his face, heart hammering. For the first time, he didn't know if he could trust his own thoughts. His father's voice still echoed in his skull, the words refusing to fade. "Blood is a chain." Adam lowered his head, not answering, but Victor saw the hesitation in his eyes. That was enough. He stood, pocketing the recorder, and left the room with a satisfied smile. Adam was left in the flickering half-light, bound, exhausted, and drowning in doubt. The war was no longer just outside, it was inside his own mind. The night was alive with whispers of rain and the faint hum of city power lines. Elena crouched low on the roof of an abandoned warehouse, her laptop balanced on her knees, its screen glowing like a fragile flame in the darkness. She traced the signal again, heart hammering. It pulsed steady now, like a heartbeat, Adam's heartbeat. Michael stood at the edge of the roof, scanning the compound across the street. Concrete walls topped with barbed wire, guard towers silhouetted against the moonlight, and the faint movement of shadows inside. Soldiers, too many of them. "That's where he is," Elena whispered. Michael's jaw tightened. He checked the magazine of his rifle and slung it over his shoulder. "We don't have the numbers for this. We don't have a choice," Elena shot back. Her voice cracked with a mix of fear and determination. "If Victor breaks him, we lose everything. Not just Adam, the whole fight." Michael studied her in the glow of the screen, her eyes red from exhaustion, her hands trembling but refusing to stop. For a moment, he wanted to tell her she was wrong, that Adam had already chosen his path. But he bit the words back. Some part of him wasn't ready to admit it either. They moved through the shadows, slipping into the compound's blind spots. Elena's laptop guided them, hacking into cameras, shutting down motion sensors for precious seconds at a time. Every step closer made her chest tighter, the silence broken only by the pounding of her heart and the scuff of Michael's boots on wet concrete. Inside, the corridor smelled of rust and damp stone. The hum of generators buzzed through the walls. They followed the signal down into the basement, and there he was. Adam sat slumped in the corner of a small cell, wrists still bound, head bowed. His hair hung over his face, hiding his eyes. For a moment, Elena's breath caught in her throat. He looked broken, a shadow of the man she remembered. She rushed to him, dropping to her knees. "Adam, it's us. We're here to take you home." Slowly, he lifted his head. His eyes found hers, and for just a flicker of a second, relief bloomed in them. But then it was gone, replaced by something harder, something colder. "You shouldn't have come," he said, his voice low, raw. Michael raised his weapon, covering the door. "We don't have time for this. Can you walk?" Adam didn't move. "You don't understand. He's in my head. My father, Victor, they've twisted everything. I don't know what's real anymore." Elena's hands shook as she tried to untie his bindings. "We'll fix this. Just trust me." But before she could finish, the door slammed open. Soldiers poured in, rifles raised. Michael fired, dropping to before they even crossed the threshold, but more surged behind them. Adam surged to his feet, his bindings snapping loose. For a terrifying second, Elena thought he was going to attack her. Instead, he seized a soldier's rifle, swinging it like an extension of his own fury, cutting through the first wave with brutal precision. Michael and Elena fought at his side, but something was different now. Adam didn't fight like the man they knew. He fought like Victor's soldiers, efficient, ruthless, unflinching. When the last body hit the floor, the three of them stood in silence, the room heavy with gunpowder and blood. Elena reached for him, tears in her eyes. Adam, it's us. You're safe now. Adam's gaze flicked to her, then to Michael. His chest rose and fell like a man at war with himself. Finally, he whispered, safe doesn't exist anymore. The words chilled them more than the fight had. Above, alarms wailed through the compound. Floodlights roared to life. Reinforcements were already on their way. Michael grabbed Adam's arm, pulling him toward the exit. Then we run. And we keep running until one of us can end this. Adam didn't resist. But as they fled through the corridors, Elena couldn't shake the image of his eyes. Not the man she remembered, but something colder, sharper, like a shadow had claimed him. And deep inside, a question burned like fire. Had they rescued Adam, or had Victor already won? The city was alive with sirens and searchlights, a jungle of steel and shadows. Adam, Elena, and Michael tore through the maze of backstreets, their breath coming in ragged gasps. Behind them, alarms still echoed from the compound, blending with the thrum of helicopters circling above. Michael led the way, rifle in hand, his eyes cutting through the dark like a predator's. Elena stumbled, clutching her laptop against her chest as if it were her heart. Adam ran silently, his face unreadable, his movements too precise, too calculated. They ducked into a drainage tunnel, water rushing around their boots. The sound masked their footsteps, but every splash felt like a beacon. Elena bent over, coughing, her body trembling from exhaustion. We can't keep this up, she gasped. We need a safe house, somewhere off the grid. Michael pressed a hand to the wall, listening to the echoes above. No safe house is safe, not anymore. His voice was a low growl. They'll be waiting at every one of them. Adam finally spoke, his voice calm to calm. Then we don't go to the safe houses. We disappear, drop below the city. There are tunnels that even Victor's men won't follow. Michael turned sharply, suspicion flashing in his eyes. And how do you know that? Adam met his stare, unflinching. Because I know how he thinks. The silence that followed was louder than the water rushing around them. Elena looked between them, her heart breaking at the distance growing with every word. They pressed on, deeper into the tunnels, rats scattered in the shadows, their claws scratching over the stone. The air grew damp and heavy, the stench of mold clinging to their skin. Every turn felt like a trap. At last, they emerged into an abandoned subway station. The tracks were long dead, choked with weeds and rust. Broken lights flickered above, painting the room in sickly yellow. Elena sank onto a bench, her body trembling. We need answers, she said. What did they do to you in there, Adam? What aren't you telling us? Adam sat across from her, leaning forward, his hands clasped between his knees. His eyes were shadows, unreadable. They showed me things, he said slowly, my father's voice, his plans. Everything we thought we were fighting for, it's all bigger than us. We're pieces on a board that's been set for years. Michael slammed his rifle against the wall, the sound cracking through the station. Don't give me riddles. Are you with us or against us? Adam didn't flinch. I'm with survival, and survival means understanding the game before it crushes us. Elena's voice trembled. That's not an answer. Before Adam could speak again, a faint hum rose from the tunnels. Not footsteps, not soldiers, speakers, hidden somewhere in the darkness. Victor's voice filled the station, calm and patient, rolling through the air like smoke. You think you've escaped me, but you're already exactly where I want you to be. Every step you've taken since the blackout has led you here. Adam knows it. Deep down, he's always known. Elena spun, searching the shadows. Michael raised his rifle, eyes darting across the tunnels, but the voice was everywhere. Adam sat still, his jaw clenched, his fists tightening until his knuckles turned white. Victor's voice softened, almost tender. You cannot rescue a man who doesn't want to be saved. Ask yourself, Elena, ask yourself, Michael. Who did you really bring out of that cell? The speakers went silent, leaving only the dripping of water and the thundering of their hearts. Elena's hand trembled as she reached for Adam's arm. Tell me he's wrong. Adam looked at her, his eyes dark, unreadable, and he said nothing. The silence was more terrifying than any answer. The abandoned subway station was colder than before, though no wind touched it. Aelina sat hunched on the bench, her laptop on her knees, the glow flickering against her pale face. She hadn't spoken in hours, her fingers dancing across the keys as if answers could be forced out of the machine. Michael paced the cracked tiles, the rifle heavy in his hands. His eyes never left Adam, who leaned against the far wall, silent, unreadable. Finally, Michael broke. His voice echoed harshly through the tunnels. "I've had enough. We don't know what they did to you in that cell. We don't know what's real anymore. For all we know, Victor is speaking through you right now." Adam's eyes flicked to him, calm and steady. "If that's what you think, then put a bullet in me." Michael's finger twitched on the trigger. The rage in his chest demanded it, but something deeper, something older held him back. He remembered the vault, the fire, Adam pulling him out when the world was collapsing. He remembered trust, and betrayal tasted bitter because of it. Aelina slammed her laptop shut. "Stop it, both of you." Her voice cracked, carrying the weight of fear and exhaustion. "This is exactly what Victor wants. He's pulling us apart without firing a single shot." Michael turned on her. "And what if Victor's right? What if the man we brought back isn't Adam anymore? Can you even look in his eyes and tell me you're sure?" Elena's breath caught. She turned toward Adam, searching his face. He didn't look away, and that was the problem. His gaze was too steady, too calm, like a mask carved from stone. Her voice trembled. "Adam, tell me you're still with us. Please." The silence dragged, then Adam said softly, "I'm with survival." Michael exploded, slamming his rifle against the wall. "There it is again. Survival. Not us. Not the mission. Just survival." "You sound exactly like him." Adam's voice stayed even. "And if I do, maybe it's because he's right. Maybe we've been fighting a war we never had the power to win." The words shattered something inside Aelina. Her knees weakened, and she gripped the bench to steady herself. "Don't say that," she whispered. "Don't you dare say that." Footsteps echoed suddenly from the tunnels. Soldiers, dozens of them. The sound grew louder, the rhythm sharp, methodical. Victor's net was tightening again. Michael raised his weapon. "We're out of time." He looked at Adam one last time. "If you betray us now, I swear I'll end you myself." Adam didn't answer. He pushed past Michael, rifle in hand, eyes fixed on the shadows where the soldiers would appear. The gunfight tore through the tunnels, deafening in the enclosed space. Bullets sparked against concrete, smoke filled the air. Aelina ducked low, dragging her laptop close while trying to keep her head down. Michael fought like a cornered wolf, each shot fueled by rage and suspicion. And Adam moved like a machine. Every shot was perfect, every motion flawless to flawless. When the last soldier fell, silence bled into the station again. The smoke curled around them like ghosts. Michael turned, his chest heaving. His rifle hung loosely at his side, but his eyes burned with fury. "That wasn't you fighting, Adam. That was him. That was Victor in your head." Adam wiped blood from his face, his voice calm. "Doesn't matter who it was, as long as we're alive." That was the breaking point. Michael raised his rifle, aiming straight at Adam's chest. Aelina screamed, stepping between them, her hands outstretched. "Stop, you'll kill each other." Michael's voice was low, dangerous. "Maybe that's the only way any of us make it out of this." Adam didn't raise his weapon. He just stared into Michael's eyes, unblinking. The stalemate held, the tunnels heavy with the weight of betrayal. And in the silence, a faint click echoed from Elena's laptop. A message appeared on the screen, a live feed. Victor's face, calm, smiling, watching. "You see," his voice purred through the speakers, "the war was never out there. It was always inside you." Elena's hands trembled on the laptop. Michael's finger tightened on the trigger. Adam's jaw clenched, the tunnel reeked of gunpowder and blood. Smoke curled toward the broken lights above, turning the air thick and suffocating. Aelina stood frozen between Adam and Michael, her arms outstretched, her voice breaking. "Stop, please, stop." Michael's rifle was steady, pointed straight at Adam's chest. His eyes were wild, his breath coming in ragged bursts. He's gone, Elena. He's not Adam anymore. If we don't end this now, Victor wins. Adam's voice was calm to calm. Pull the trigger, then, if you really believe that. But when Victor comes for you, remember this moment. Remember who kept you alive. The tension stretched like glass ready to shatter. Elena could feel both of their heartbeats in the silence, pounding against the air. Her own voice cracked. Don't make me choose between you. The laptop on the bench flickered. Victor's face appeared again, lit by the dim glow of monitors behind him. His voice slithered into the tunnel like a blade. Beautiful, isn't it? The collapse of trust. The moment when survival outweighs loyalty. You're all playing exactly where I want you. Michael's grip on the rifle tightened. Adam didn't blink, then the tunnel shook. A blast from somewhere above sent dust and debris raining down. The walls groaned and the lights flickered violently. Elena stumbled, clutching the laptop. The screen glitched, Victor's face breaking into static. In the chaos, Adam moved. Michael reacted. A single shot cracked through the tunnel. Elena screamed. The smoke swallowed them all. When it cleared, one of them was on the ground, blood spreading across the tiles. But the shadows and dust made it impossible to see who. Elena dropped to her knees, her sobs echoing through the silence. The laptop beside her buzzed back to life. Victor's distorted voice whispered through the static. It doesn't matter who falls, the game continues. And Adam, the real Adam, has yet to choose. The feed cut. The tunnel fell into darkness.